Do you think that your small business is safe from a lawsuit? And as an employee, do you think that you have the best deal possible with your employer? Well, think again, because there's all kinds of landmines throughout this type of topic. We're going to be talking with my friend and expert, Diane Faulkner, today, and she is an expert when it comes to human resources. Ooh, she's really good, y'all. I've had to use her in the past, and she knows her stuff. So my guest is Diane, and we're going to help you stay a step ahead of those lawsuits. Now, I've known Diane for a number of years. I always like to tell my audience how I met you. So I knew Diane through some networking events, but not real well until a mutual friend invited a group of women to get together for a long weekend kind of retreat in a place not too far from us in a nice resort. And I got to know her then, and she's just the nicest, kindest person, one of the kindest people I've ever met. So I'm so happy that Diane's with us. But let me tell you a little bit about her, because as sweet as she looks on the inside, she knows her stuff and she's tough. So let me tell you, she is an author, she's a speaker, and she's an HR consultant. And I would say that's an expert consultant. Now, she owns two companies. She owns Human Resources Made Easy and Full Circle Press. She's got 37 years of HR experience, and she's been writing and speaking on HR issues for almost 3 decades. And she writes for some pretty incredible magazines and I'm guessing blogs and such, but it's Forbes, U.S. News and World Report, and LegalZoom. I guess some of those things I Google on LegalZoom, they might even be written by Diane. Yeah, I'm sure. So her book is called Don't Get Sued, Get Smart, A Small Business Owner's Pocket Guide to Avoiding Legal Landmines. And it's due out in the spring. So welcome, Diane, to Success Through Connections.
Thanks, Z.
I'm so happy to have her.
Yeah.
So, only 2 people in my life have ever called me Z, and I love it. It's just an endearment to me. So I'm so glad you call me Z. I won't tell you who the other one is. Guy from college.
Oh, no.
Anyway, let's dive right in and let's talk about some employers first of all. So okay. I'd like to know, are there a couple of common legal mistakes that business owners make when it comes to managing employees?
When it comes to managing employees, yeah, they make a lot of assumptions about their employees, about what they can do, especially if they've just recently promoted their employee into a team lead. They'll assume that just because the person is great at their job, that they'll be an excellent manager. And that's not always true. There's an art to managing people, and without training, people just aren't going to manage well.
Do they put them in the job and then train them, or do they train them and then put them in the job?
Well, if they're smart, they train them and then put them in the job. But what happens most of the times is that they put them in the job, they see that they're struggling, and then they put them through some training.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, because not everybody's a born leader. No,
that's true.
Yeah, just because you're loud doesn't mean you're a leader.
That's right.
Right? I mean, really, people think, oh, she's loud or he's loud, and let's just put him in that job. So yeah. I know that your book is titled Don't Get Sued, Get Smart.
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty attention grabbing. But what are some of the top things that an employer can do immediately when they first start out so that they can avoid those courts?
Okay. One of the first things that they can do, that I tell anyone who's starting a business or who has started a business and then wants to bring on a person, whether it's an employee or an independent contractor, they need to have a handbook. If they don't have a handbook that covers all of the different employment laws that are out there and how their employees need to follow those laws, as well as the employer and the independent contractor needs to know that they're also covered under some of those laws. If they don't have that, then they are going to get into trouble. Yeah. It just is. That's just the way it is.
And I know that laws change constantly. So obviously hiring you is a great way to stay on top of the laws.
That's right.
That's a given. But What are some other ways that an employer can keep on top of the employment laws that are constantly changing? Especially, it's like, I don't know we're almost at the end of 2025. So I'm imagine there's some new ones coming out for next year. How do they stay on top of those laws?
Well, Department of Labor has a news release page on their website. And I just subscribe. I mean, this is what I do. I subscribe to that. And that's how I keep up to date most of the times. I also make sure that at least once a year I go to a legal update that a local law firm holds. They hold a huge conference. All it's going to do, they do it in the spring and they do it in the fall. In the spring, so that you can know that what's coming up, what changes are coming up, or what changes have just happened, and then in the fall so that you know what changes are going to be coming up for the next year. I highly recommend that someone make it, or make a relationship with a local employment law attorney, not labor law attorney, but employment law attorney. A labor law attorney is for employees, an employment law attorney is for employers.
That's important to know. So whatever side of the coin you're on, that's who you need to be in touch with. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Develop a relationship with one of them, and then make sure that you're getting updates. And almost every law firm has something on their website, or they'll host breakfasts or lunches or conferences, and just make sure that you go to those. It's a great investment in your company.
Or I say, or if you're an employer, you need to hire an HR expert to be your resource, someone like Diane. And it's not that I'm plugging her, but I am. I mean, I had a call you recently for a friend who was he was an employee having an issue. And I will tell you, it was rather interesting because I gave this person all the advice that you had given me.
Mhm.
And then a few days later, this individual then called an employer or employee attorney who gave him the exact same advice. I'm like, well, you should have listened to me. Could have saved you some money.
Right.
Could have saved you some money. You didn't have to
That's
pay that
right.
lawyer for what I just told you.
Yeah. No
So
kidding.
you want to find someone who's the expert. It's like they know the laws. And it's interesting to me how you know the laws from the different states. So tell me about that, because I know different laws are in different states. So how do you keep track of that? For instance, an employer who has employees all over the country. How does
Mhm.
that work?
Yeah.
Whose
Well,
law is it? Whose law is it? Where the employer is, or is it where the employees? What laws are there?
sometimes it's where the employer is, sometimes it's where the employee is. It just depends on the state. So you want to make sure that when you are hiring in a different state, you get with the state Department of Labor and get their updates. And there will be on their website a list of the laws that are applicable to you. And just, read through those, and you'll get yourself updated.
That's great advice, because I mean, hey, we got 50 states, they're all over
Yeah,
the place. And
that's
then
right.
there's
And all the
global,
territories.
and then there's international law. So you've got to know what's in
Yeah.
play. So
Yeah.
let's talk for just a second about non-competes.
Okay.
Are they legal? Are they not? I've heard so many conflicting things like, oh, they don't really hold their weight. Even if you've signed one, they're not really enforceable. And then I've heard other people say they're super enforceable. So are they enforceable, or at least in Florida or anywhere else, really? Because I mean, can you stop somebody from working? And what are the alternatives for an employer and an employee when it comes to non-competes?
Okay. Well, it depends on the state. Like in Washington state, non-competes, they're not worth the paper that they're printed on because they're not enforceable there. In Florida, they're extremely enforceable. So you have to know what your state law is on that. There was a federal bill that was going through, or federal law that was going through, that was going to just knock out all of the non-competes. That will end up not going through. So
Non-competes in Florida or all over the country?
all over the country, it
Okay.
was under the Biden administration. They were going to just knock that out, which of course is bad for business. It's great for employees.
But not for the
Yes,
employer.
not for the employer, but now it's back to by the state. So, you really want to just make sure that you're checking out your state. And when you're doing non-competes for people who are out of your state, you want to make sure that you know what their law is, because that's going to be the law that covers that employee.
You know what
Whether-
I see a lot of and you tell me if you see this, the employer makes you sign the non-compete or whatever other employment contracts there are, but don't they have the obligation to send you a copy of that immediately rather than wait till something terrible happens down the road and you're begging for a copy of your contract? Is that something an employee has to ask for, or is that something that the employer should automatically give to you?
Should automatically give it to you. Whatever you're signing, anything that you sign, you have a right to anything that you sign
At the time.
at the time. Yeah.
I think people forget that. They're just so excited they have the job or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, there should, I mean, when I was in corporate, whenever I would have, someone sign off on anything before they left my office, my secretary would give them a copy of whatever it was, or else I would just have two originals and we would both sign both of the originals and they would keep one and I would keep one.
So what happens in the situation? I guess they just don't get hired. Everything goes great and they just don't want to sign that non-compete.
Yeah, they just don't get hired.
They just don't get hired. It's just that simple. Wow.
Yeah.
It's like they got you in chains.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, I can't imagine. Okay.
But, most non-competes are written such that it should be not a big deal for you to sign it.
Yeah.
If it's written in such a way that it's going to stop you from work at all, like for me as a writer, there are some big companies out there who want me to sign a non-compete. Well, I can't sign a non-compete with them because it would stop my ability to do my job or, do my work. I will write on labor law for LegalZoom, but I'll also write for labor law for like find law. So find law, that's more of a lawyer thing.
Okay.
But
so know what you're signing and
know what you're signing.
Know what
and
you're signing.
And always you should always give the employee a couple of days, usually 3 days, to have them be able to give that piece of paper over to someone, an attorney, hopefully, that will review that and say, yeah, this is good. No, that's not good.
Yeah. It's like, and a lot of times all you have to do maybe is even just ask the employer if you're leaving, will you release me from this non-compete? And depending on the circumstances, they may not.
Yeah, that's true.
You never know. So, yeah. So let's talk. You talked about independent contractors. I used to hire a lot of those. So what's the biggest legal risk when you're, say, misclassifying them? And let's define exactly what an independent contractor actually is.
Okay. An independent contractor, I have my little cheat sheet here.
That's okay.
They're whatever they do cannot be integral to your work. Say if there was a medical benefits processing company and they want to have their processors all as independent contractors where their whole reason for business is medical processing, those processors would not be able to be independent contractors because it's an integral part of their business.
Makes
See
sense.
what I say?
That is
okay.
Like subcontractors, but they're not really subcontractors because that's all you do.
That's all you do. If that's all you do, then they're not independent contractors.
And is it not true that at least this was the only thing I ever remembered was you couldn't give them set hours?
Yeah, you can't give them set hours. They have to be able to control how they work, where they work, what they work on. Like you can't give an independent contractor a laptop, for instance, because they need to have their own laptop. They need to have their own tools. That's considered a tool. You wouldn't give them a cell phone. You wouldn't anything that they need to do the work, you would not give that to them. And if you do, you've automatically made them an employee and they are automatically due benefits. They're automatically due overtime. If what they do is classified as overtime, they have to be able to show that they can profit or show a loss for what they're doing. They have to be monetarily tied to whatever it is that they're doing. If you get lots more business and it affects them in such a way that they would be benefiting from you gathering extra contracts. I'm saying that wrong. When you are hiring you don't hire an independent contractor, you
contract them.
Yeah, contract them.
Are you saying if they bring in business for you?
If they can't bring in,
they refer someone to you.
They can refer someone to you, but they can't necessarily bring in business for you. That would be a sales rep for you.
True.
So
yeah.
So that would not be it. But they have to be able to show that whatever it is that they do in their business they can show a profit or they can show a loss. And, they would have a P&L statement
They're a
of their,
separate company altogether.
yep, that would not show with you. They have to show that they are invested in their company, not invested in your company, but invested in their own company. They have to have special skills that you don't necessarily have available to you, or you don't have enough available to you in order to be brought on as an independent contractor. Like if you have a design firm, you could have designers, but if you get a big project that's going to be for a limited amount of time and you need to bring on extra help, you can bring in independent contract designers, but they're going to be limited time. And
From this time period to this period, there's a beginning and there's an ending.
there's a beginning, there's an end, and it's limited in scope.
Okay.
And the work is limited in scope. Their performance, or excuse me, the permanency of the relationship can't go on and on. Now, you might work with them for over several years, but it can't be such that they're 100% or even 80% dependent on you for their income. They have to show that they can do other, work for other people. One thing that employers get messed up on is they'll say, I need an independent contractor, but I need them 40 hours a week. Well, there's no way that they can do other client work if you need them 40 hours a week.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
That's a big topic. I'm thinking they should probably, when they have their employee handbook, there should be a whole section on independent contractors.
Yeah, there should be.
There should absolutely. And that's the section this independent contractor should actually be aware of. And don't they have to sign off on something saying they are an independent contractor? Or at least they should.
Well, the contract that the independent contractor gives to the employer should have a statement in there that says that this contract does not imply an employer-employee relationship. And that comes from the independent contractor. The employer does not give an independent contractor the contract. The independent contractor gives the business owner a contract.
Okay.
And then the last thing would be control. You cannot control that independent contractor. You can't supervise them. In other words, all you can do is say, this is what I need. I need it by this time. And I need it done, under like with a designer. I need something that's abstract and not nature. Or, you can have that kind of control, but you can't just say, this is what I want you to do. I want you to do it in this amount of time.
And this is how I want you to do it.
This is how I want you to do it on this computer, using this software. And that's another thing. You would not give them access to your...
Well, that would be your tools, and you want them to use their own tools.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes total sense. So let me move on a little bit.
Okay.
So company culture, does that play into keeping your business lawsuit free?
It can.
How can you give us an example?
Okay. Well, if you have a toxic culture where you have, say, anti-Semitism or you have anti-Christian or, whatever going on, that's going to fester. And that could possibly lead to a lawsuit if you don't do something to tamp that down or get it out, basically. Because an employee might think that it's just not a safe environment for them to work, and they might quit on their own. And then they can say, well, it was a hostile work environment. That's Title VII. It was a hostile work environment. And I didn't feel safe. My employer didn't do anything to protect me. And they would have a nice basis for a lawsuit.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. That's interesting. Wow. Better be careful out there. Okay. Severance pay. That's something that I hear a lot about and it can get tricky. So what should an employer do? What should they include? What they should avoid when they're offering severance packages to the employee? And on the flip side, what can an employee do to try to beef up that severance package?
Okay.
Is that something that's already done, a done deal before they even get started, like in that employee handbook?
Yeah, you would have something in the employee handbook about severance pay, but severance pay can be individualized.
Okay.
In general, severance pay is a week per year. So if you were employed for someplace for 2 years, you would get 2 weeks of severance pay. Some places do it a week per month, but most companies do it a week per year.
Wow.
If you're in sales, it might
So
be
if
a week.
you're there for 5 years, all you're going to get are 5 weeks.
Yeah,
That's really crappy.
it is crappy. It's very crappy.
Oh, if you're on the
If you-
employee side, that's
if you're
crappy.
on the employee side, if you're on the employer, well, and plus you get your unused PTO.
Okay.
You get all of that on top of it. But yeah, severance pay is pretty much individualized. And severance pay, you're buying something from the person leaving. Severance pay you would give to someone who, if it was a long-time employee, you would give severance pay. That should just be an automatic. If it's a
Yeah.
short-term employee, you're generally giving severance pay to in exchange for them not suing you,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Basically, you're right because you don't want to
Basically,
get sued. So,
yeah, you don't want to
so
get
what
sued.
rights does this employee have, or what should I say? What do employees often overlook when they're being laid off or asked to resign? What are some of those things they overlook?
Well, a lot of them just don't think that they have any power to do anything. What I would say to an employee is take a look at the culture, take a look at the circumstances in which you let go. If you weren't, say you weren't offered training, or you didn't have a supervisor until late into your tenure, all of that goes to getting more. You can say, I'm going to see an attorney, and this is what I'm going to bring up to them. That's kind of a way that you can jigger something out of the employer.
Yeah.
Get a little more, a couple weeks more. I won't do this if you give me a couple weeks more.
Yeah. But you have to be careful how you word that because then they can say, I'm not giving you anything.
That's right. Be very
So
careful
you
on
be
that.
careful before you. It's like don't push back people into a corner. I learned that one the hard way long ago. You
Yeah,
give somebody an
definitely.
ultimatum, and
Yeah. I mean, you
yeah,
can write a letter and then buy an hour of an attorney's time and have them look it over.
yeah,
Or you can just buy 2 hours of an attorney's time and have them write it for you.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, definitely have an attorney look
yeah.
it over before you give it
Yeah.
to the employer.
And weigh the cost of that employee, that letter that an attorney is charging you X amount of dollars per hour. Is it worth? Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Because you're only going to be asking for a couple of weeks. It's not
No,
worth going to the,
not
it's not worth
no.
writing the letter because you will have used up what you would have gained paying off the
Pay the
attorney.
attorney. Yeah,
So it should be a significant
yeah.
thing that you're going after.
So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have when it comes to an HR department, especially when it comes to protecting their rights?
Well, how do you mean protecting the
Well, does
employer's rights?
what are I'm like I am not from corporate world, so to me, an HR department would be somebody who hands me my paperwork when I'm signing on or what have you. When it's like I taught school back in the 1980s, so you had employee contracts. What exactly is it's like that's a misconception because they do so much more than that. So what are some of the things that an HR department does do for the employer and or the employee?
Well, I know, speaking from my experience, I did a lot of employee counseling when when things were getting hot among the employees. I would be brought
Mm.
in to cool things down. I would be brought in to do training. I would be brought in to do supervisor training. I would be brought in to update the board and the executives and the directors and the managers, excuse me, and the lead workers on employment laws. And then I would also have something just for the employees to let them know what the employment laws were out there, how they are affected by the employment laws, and how they could use it to their benefit. Like when I was at an architectural engineering design firm, I did one of those sessions for the employees, and I wound up having within a week one of the employees. It was a secretary to one of the or not contractor, one of the foremen on a work site. contacted me, letting me know that, she felt that she was being sexually harassed by her foreman. And what he was doing was he would give her detailed drawings of high heels, these stiletto heels, tell her where she could buy them, tell her that, she needs to wear those. She can only wear skirts to work. And mind you, this is at a construction site. You're not going to wear, no woman's going to wear a skirt or heels, let alone heels, to a construction
Be
site because
wearing some boots.
yeah, you're wearing boots. That's exactly what you're wearing, but that's what he wanted her to wear. And he even started throwing his what do you call it, toll change to her. He gave her a box and gave her his toll change because she said, I can't afford, the brand of heels that you want me to wear. I can't afford those. I don't make enough. And he started a fund for her. Yeah. So,
So how do you de-escalate that?
oh, well, I fired the guy
Yeah.
naturally,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I heard her out. And then I went in and what I had her do was give me copies of everything that he had given her. So I had a meeting with him and I presented him with all of these things. And he said, yeah, I've given them to her. And then I asked, well, why would you expect her to wear skirts and stilettos to work on a work site, on a construction site? And he said, well, it's because that's what a professional secretary does. And that's what a professional woman wears. Of course, when I was there, I
Hope you
purposely
were wearing boots.
I wore a slack suit and I had flats on. I said, are you saying that I'm not dressed professionally? He said, well, no, you're dressed professionally. I said, is there a reason why she couldn't come in wearing something like this? Well, no. And then I also had to look through his drawers and his truck where he had pornography
Oh,
stashed. Yeah. And
there's the door, buddy.
yeah, I wound up firing him that day. But it's just that's what an HR person will do.
See, I had no clue they do all that. So that's a HR person can be your best friend
Yeah, it can be
or
your
your
best friend.
enemy.
Well, it's hard being an HR person because you're there for the employee, you're also
Uh-huh.
there for the employer. So it's a delicate balance that the HR person has to weigh out every day.
Wow. So, Diane, tell us a little bit about your book.
My book. Well,
Uh,
my book, just like the title, Don't Get Sued, Get Smart. What I've done is I have written a book that is for small employers, 49 employees and fewer.
uh,
And I've explained the main laws. There are 8 main laws,
uh,
employment laws, that they get messed up on. And I've explained all of those out for them by giving them a scary story.
mm-hmm.
And then I explained what law was broken. And then I explained how what they could do to not break the law. Well, I also explain the law in there, and then I give them what their responsibilities are and some key takeaways. And that's basically the setup for the whole book. And then in the second half of the book, I have case studies of fictional
Names have been changed to protect the
names have been
innocent and
changed to protect
guilty
the innocent. That's right. But I've taken, real world stuff, put them into a fictional world
setting.
and
Uh-huh.
yeah, fictional setting, and then just taking someone through how it looks putting these laws into action in your workplace every single day.
Very good. And
Yeah.
when is this book coming out? How can they get the book?
They can get the book by contacting me at diane@dianefaulkner.com and letting me know that they want the book in the subject line. If they reference this podcast, that would be great. Podcast is, Zelda's podcast and book, and then I'll know to pay attention to that email
Yes.
because I get several hundred emails a day, so I have to have something to differentiate. Or they can go to my website, diane@dianefaulkner.com, and there's a pop-up that where you can order the book.
Okay. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming this is how they can reach you for HR to hire you for writing. I'm sure you write HR benefits packages and stuff and handbooks and
Handbooks, yep. And I also do come in for compliance. I mean, if you're having problems with employees or you're out of compliance in some way, shape, or form, or you need an HR audit, if you've never had one, you need to have one. I do audits and prepare for government audits, which are not fun, but I do that. But yeah, they can contact me there at Diane@DianeFaulkner.com. That's my general email.
We'll put that in the show notes for you.
Okay,
Very
great.
good. Well, this has been so fascinating. I've got one more question I want to ask you. It's my signature question I ask all of my guests, and that is, can you share with us when you had an opportunity that presented itself to you because of a connection that you had?
Yes. When I was in corporate, this is back when the internet first came about.
Oh, yeah,
And
I
you had,
remember.
yes, and you had the executive chat rooms. So my president was in an executive chat room, and the editor in chief of one of our trade magazines popped in, asked a question. My president came to me and said, "Answer this question for me." And I'm like, "Okay." And the way that she asked the question is a way in which I hate it when journalists ask questions in such a way that you have to answer it only one way. It's like they've got their story already written out and they want you to say this so that they don't have to do anything other research. But so I told her the answer, and I said, but you have to do 18 months worth of all of this stuff in order to get there, in the email that I wrote to her. And she wrote back and said, "This sounds great. Would you mind writing a feature for us?" And that started my writing career.
Oh,
Yes. And then one of the trade magazines saw the article and asked me it was our national credit union national association. And so they asked me to speak at their national conference, and that started my speaking career at a national conference, not at a small thing, but
no, you didn't start at the state level.
no, I started with 500 people in the audience. And then another connection that I had with the Jacksonville Business Journal, I was asked to do a piece on a couple who owns an international company here out at the beaches. And I was to do a profile on them. And while they wanted me to meet their staff, while their staff was gathering, they took me aside and asked if told me that they'd been trying to write a book for the past 2 years and just couldn't get it off the ground. Do I do any ghostwriting? And I said, absolutely, I do. And that started my ghostwriting career.
Never say no, always say
No,
yes. And then you figure it out.
that's right.
That's great. And that's what Full Circle Press is about.
Yep, that's what Full Circle Press is about. I for my own books, I go to another publisher to have them a traditional
To them
publisher.
published. But this is so for our listeners out there who have a book that they want to write and you just haven't been able to sit down there and write it yet, you know how to get in touch with Diane. It's in the show notes. She can help you write that book. She'll be your ghostwriter.
That's right. Or if you already have a book written, I will edit that for you
Okay.
and then put it up on Amazon for you.
Yay. Oh, I need to talk to you about that. I have one on Amazon now that's not quite right, but we'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
Anyway, so that is our show for today. I hope that you've enjoyed today's show, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We want those subscribers. So go ahead while you're listening now, go ahead and hit that subscribe. And wow, this has just been awesome. Learned a lot about contracts, what to do, what not to do when it comes to employees. Diane is our expert. So as I like to tell people, success does not happen in isolation. It happens because of the connections we have. And in today's world, connections is your currency, and connections is the power move. So keep connecting, and I will see you next week with a new episode of Success Through Connections.